He had nothing except his freedom. Diogenes, the philosopher who lived in a barrel surrounded by stray dogs, refused anything he could not control from within. When Alexander the Great offered him anything, he replied, "Step out of my sunlight." The most powerful man in the world fell silent and admitted, "If I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." Why? Because Diogenes possessed something empires cannot buy: total sovereignty over himself. The brightest minds, the most feared creators, and the men who shaped history all shared a secret they now try to make you believe is weakness. But what if it's the opposite? What if the very thing you were taught to avoid is in truth your greatest strength? What if the path everyone calls the right one is, in reality, the perfect trap? Nietzsche knew this. He devised a brutal test: the eternal return. If you had to live your life exactly as it is, over and over, for all eternity, would you accept? Most recoil because they are living someone else's script. But there is a rare kind of man who smiles at that question. The man who builds his own life, who needs no approval, and who understands something almost no one sees. And what you are about to hear may destroy your sense of powerlessness, redefine your purpose, and reveal what it truly means to be whole. Nietzsche once said, "One must still have chaos within to give birth to a dancing star." Most live on autopilot, following rules they never chose. In this setting, marriage becomes the final surrender, the promise to be predictable, domesticated. But Nietzsche's vision of human potential, the Übermensch, is not a comic book hero. It is someone who creates his own values, lives beyond social categories, and becomes his own moral authority. That demands a rare condition: chosen solitude. Not the sad solitude of the abandoned, but the deliberate solitude of the seeker. The solitude of the incomplete is neediness. True solitude is the territory of creators, the space where real power is born. Schopenhauer knew this. He never married. He lived like a monk, writing in the morning, walking in the afternoon, and reading at night with his poodle at his side. For him, a man is only free when he is alone, and if he does not love that solitude, he will never love freedom. Think, would Napoleon have conquered Europe if he consulted Josephine every night? Would Einstein have changed physics if he traded his moments of revelation for romantic dinners? A married man filters every ambition through the emotions and limits of another person. A single man keeps his vision intact, and that is why he is dangerous. Marriage demands consensus, but greatness demands conviction. It demands commitment, but innovation demands a singular vision. It wants you to be half of something when you were born to be whole. The will to power, which Nietzsche described as the pulse of existence, flows differently in the solitary man. It does not dissipate in emotional negotiations. It goes straight into creation, achievement, and self-mastery. The married man lives surrounded by feedback, approvals, and criticisms. The solitary man must be his own compass, judge, and inspiration. And it is precisely there, in that self-alignment, that greatness is born. Nietzsche never married. He channeled all his passion and volcanic energy into a philosophy that still shakes the world. His amor fati, love of fate, was only possible because his fate was his own, shaped without asking for permission. But by choosing this radical path, you face an inevitable truth. Death is already waiting for you, between every heartbeat. The Stoics turned this certainty into fuel. Memento mori, remember you will die, not as a morbid obsession, but as an engine to live with urgency. Once you understand that time is finite, every second wasted trying to manage someone else's emotions is a stolen fragment of your transformation. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire in history, yet his greatest insights were born in solitude, in silence, staring into the weight of existence. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not over outside events." And this is where the married man stumbles. He spends his life trying to control what will never be his, another person's emotions, reactions, and decisions. The single man lives the Stoic dichotomy of control. He focuses on what depends on him and releases the rest. The married man violates this every single day. Socrates, considered the wisest man in history, was married to Xanthippe, famous for her sharp tongue. When asked why he endured her, he replied, "If you can live with her, you can live with anyone." Notice, he didn't say she made him happy or complete. He treated marriage as training in patience, and in doing so, spent his energy fighting emotional fires that were not his own. True peace does not come from concessions or negotiations. It is born from inner mastery, something impossible if you spend your days reacting to another person's emotional climate. Epictetus said, "We are actors in a play." The married man performs for a single audience. The single man writes his own script. When you understand that your peace is 100% your responsibility and you stop outsourcing your emotional stability, you become unbreakable. Not because nothing can hurt you, but because nothing can control you. Picture yourself in the middle of an infinite desert, without a map, compass, or guide. Every decision is yours, every mistake is yours, every victory too. This is the existential anguish Sartre described, being condemned to freedom. Most run from this reality into the comfortable cage of marriage, where decisions are negotiated and freedom is traded for the illusion of security. But what if that anguish is a gift? Sartre said, "First you exist, then you decide who you are." Marriage, however, forces you to shape your identity through endless concessions until your edges are sanded down and you fit. The married man says, "I am a husband, I am a partner, I am part of a team." But those are masks, not identities. The authentic man says, "I am what I choose to be," without apology. Emily Dickinson never married, and in solitude she wrote eternal verses. She understood that rejecting labels is the first step toward discovering who you truly are. Her solitude was freedom, not emptiness. The only way to live in a world that limits freedom is to become so free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. Marriage, no matter how loving, is a contract with limitation, an agreement to mold your desires to fit another's needs. Thoreau went to Walden Pond, not to escape the world, but to live with intention. He discovered he needed very little to be happy: a cabin, simple food, books, and the wealth of his own mind. The married man, by contrast, must satisfy two tastes, two wills, two schedules. His needs multiply because they are no longer his alone. And what most people fear, the emptiness, the silence, the lack of external validation, is in truth the cradle of authenticity. When you have no one to please and no one to blame, you finally discover what you want, who you are, and what you are capable of. There is a lie so convincing that even intelligent men believe it, that you need another person to be complete, that there is the other half waiting for you, your soulmate. Carl Jung would have laughed at this. He knew that wholeness is not achieved by adding another person to you, but by integrating everything that already exists within you: masculine and feminine energy, light and shadow, conscious desires and hidden impulses. The process of individuation, becoming who you truly are, demands facing and integrating all these aspects. But in relationships, many men project their own feminine energy onto their partner, expecting her to take care of the emotional and intuitive side while they stay with rationality and strategy. At first, it may seem to work, but in reality, it is living forever as half a man. The man who is enough for himself learns to access his own emotional intelligence and intuition. He doesn't need someone to translate what he feels, because he already masters his inner language. Schopenhauer knew this and lived that way in the company of his poodle. For him, solitude was not a punishment, but the natural territory of great souls. It is impossible to reach that level if you spend your life reacting to another person's psychological chaos. In marriage, the shadows you hide tend to appear projected onto the other. It is easier to blame your partner for being too emotional than to admit you are looking at the reflection of your own inner disorder. The man who lives alone has nowhere to run. If he feels anger, he must understand why. If he feels sadness, he must face it. If he feels fear, he must go to the root. This direct confrontation creates true integrity. Jung also spoke of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences, which appear more clearly in solitude, when the mind is quiet enough to perceive the connection between what is inside and what is outside. When that happens, everything changes. The archetypal energies Jung described, warrior, king, magician, lover, only fully blossom when they are not filtered through the concessions of a relationship. The solitary warrior fights battles that matter, not domestic emotional skirmishes. The king rules without household negotiations. The magician dives into profound mysteries without distractions. The lover embraces all of life, not just one person. Jung was clear. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Your authentic self is not half of a couple. It is a whole being, capable of standing tall, thinking without asking permission, and creating from its wildest depths. The married man seeks fulfillment through union. The man who is enough for himself discovers he was never incomplete. He learns to explore his entire psychological spectrum alone. And there he finds a rare kind of power, not the superficial power of money, muscles, or domination, but the real silent power that acts unseen and accomplishes what others cannot even grasp. Marriage is incompatible with this power. Machiavelli knew, everyone sees what you appear to be. Few perceive what you truly are. But marriage demands emotional transparency, and that creates vulnerability. Anyone with something, or someone, more important than their mission will always have a weakness. Decisions stop being tactical and begin passing through the filter of a partner's reactions. Risks become limited, movements predictable. The single man is different. He is a ghost in the system. Invisible plans, resources under control, total freedom to change direction, vanish, or act without explanation. Florence Nightingale understood this. She refused marriage to dedicate herself entirely to the mission of revolutionizing medicine. Her strategic solitude saved more lives than any married woman of her time. Ayn Rand captured this mentality in the character Howard Rourke. I will never live for the sake of another man, nor ask another man to live for mine. It is not coldness, it is clarity. In politics, in business, or in creation, the most effective use what Machiavelli called strategic opacity, revealing only what matters, keeping options open, avoiding commitments that limit movement. The married man, however, has made the supreme commitment to consider his partner's well-being in every important decision. Noble, yes, but tactically fragile. Enemies, competitors, and even allies know how to use it against you. The single man's loyalty is to one thing alone, his mission. That creates a purity of intention almost impossible to manipulate. But there is a price, solitude. Not the bitter solitude of the rejected, but the voluntary separation of those who see truths most cannot bear. Nietzsche called it the burden of great souls. Few carry it because few develop themselves enough to do so. The man who has already plunged into the fundamental questions knows that almost no one can walk beside him on the mental and spiritual level where he lives. That is why the greatest minds rarely married or sought emotional fusion. Nikola Tesla never married. From solitude, he gave the world alternating current wireless technology and visions of energy we are still trying to understand. When asked why he chose to remain single, he replied, "No emotion can surpass that of seeing a creation come to life." Tesla knew that certain types of creation demand total dedication, not just hours of work, but hours of sleep, conscious focus, and unconscious processing. Marriage, no matter how loving, divides that energy. And here's what most people fail to understand. The philosopher does not avoid marriage because he does not know how to love, but because he loves something else. The scientist is not alone because he is antisocial, but because solitude gives him a deeper connection to reality. The artist does not refuse out of fear of intimacy, but because he has found an intimacy with existence itself that no relationship could keep intact. Virginia Woolf wrote, "A woman must have money and a room of her own if she is to write fiction." It was not only about physical space, but about mental freedom, to follow a thought to the end without interruption. The great soul learns to be comfortable with being misunderstood. Many think that someone who is alone is incomplete, rejected, or afraid. But explaining your reasons would mean reducing profound decisions into terms that common minds could grasp, and that distorts the truth. True solitude is not the absence of connection, but a rarer kind of connection. With truth, with beauty, with understanding, and with the deepest forces of existence. You stand at a crossroads, the common path. Find someone, marry, share your life, negotiate your dreams in exchange for domestic peace. It is comfortable, socially approved, and widely celebrated. The other path, choose to belong to yourself, to create something that will outlive you and justify the audacity of having been born. Nietzsche warned, "It takes chaos to give birth to a dancing star." Marriage is anti-chaos. Stability, predictability, harmony, good qualities, yes, but incapable of producing unique creations. The dancing star is born from the one who faces the void alone, who who creates meaning from nothing and purpose from possibility. Marcus Aurelius said, "Confine yourself to the present," but the married man lives negotiating the future, pulled away from the now by demands that never cease. The solitary man has access to the pure present. His energy flows where he chooses, undrained by emotional management or domestic responsibilities. Jung put it simply, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and that cannot be done as a couple, nor in a group, nor by consensus. It is the work of solitude, in the invisible laboratory of the soul." Facing your own psyche and your potential takes courage. The world will call you selfish. Let them. While they mold their dreams to fit what is acceptable, you build empires with the raw material of your undivided attention. They will call you incomplete. Let them. While they search for the other half, you discover you were always whole. They will call you lonely. Let them. While they spend energy managing another person's emotional climate, you speak with forces they can't even perceive. The easy path. Couples holding hands, splitting chores and bills. Quick comfort in exchange for lasting regret. The hard path. Chosen solitude. Radical self-ownership. Refusal to sell your sovereignty for the illusion of completeness. Few choose this path, but those who do discover that true power doesn't come from being chosen by someone. It comes from choosing yourself so completely that the world has no choice but to recognize your sovereignty. Tesla chose the lightning of his own mind and gave us the modern world. Dickinson chose the infinity within her and wrote eternal verses. It wasn't chance or tragedy, it was conscious choice. To prioritize being over belonging, safety, or company. And now the choice is yours. Your soul needs to know what it is capable of when nothing holds you back, when no one limits your reach, when all your strength is channeled toward what truly matters. If you've made it this far, write in the comments, "I choose to be." Let's see how many are ready to stop negotiating with their soul and create from the very essence of who they are. This is not the end, it's the beginning. The moment you stop waiting for approval and step into your power. The instant you stop begging for love because you've learned to create from the wholeness that was always within you. Now there are no masks, no soulmate myths, only you, standing in the vastness of your own existence, building a life tailored to yourself. They will keep saying you are incomplete. Let them talk. They will keep repeating, you need someone to be happy. Let them talk. They will believe you're running from love. But you are not running. You are choosing. You choose the hardest path, the most solitary, the most feared, and for that very reason, the most powerful. You've stopped asking for crumbs of connection and begun creating communion with the eternal. You've stopped being a statistic. You've become a force that numbers cannot explain. Because no matter how many times the world says otherwise, you know something they have forgotten.